stove in my kitchen has a digital clock on it, and it's actually supposed to double as a kitchen timer. Now I say supposed to because unfortunately it hasn't worked for quite a while. Oh, don't get me wrong, all the lights light up, but that's just the problem. All the lights are lit all the time, so it's just perpetually showing 8888. Now if I were to ask you whether or not my clock is properly functioning, what would you say? I think most of us would be able to recognize that it's broken. But why? I mean, all the lights are lighting up, so what is it about it that makes it broken? We recognize that it's broken because the proper function of a clock isn't to always show 4 8s. It's to tell us what time it is. Because it's not doing specifically that, even though it's doing something, we say that it's not functioning properly. Unfortunately, I'm not an electrician, so it just stays broken. Now, a clock is what we call an artifact. It's something that's been made by an intelligent person. But this whole concept of proper function isn't limited to artifacts. We use the exact same terminology for living organisms. As Alvin Plantinga says in his book Warrants and Proper Function, we think a hawk's heart that beats only 25 times a minute is not functioning properly, that AIDS damages the immune system and makes it function poorly, that multiple sclerosis causes the immune system to malfunction in such a way that white blood cells attack the nervous system, and that the purpose or function of the heart is to pump blood, not to make that thumpa thumpa sound. Thinking in these terms is natural and apparently unavoidable for human beings. And this isn't some minor semantic matter. It is absolutely essential to modern science. Again, Plantinga elaborates. Most of the disciplines falling under biology, psychology, sociology, economics, and the like essentially involve those functional generalizations of which we have spoken. And those generalizations, in turn, essentially involve the notions of proper function, damage, malfunction, purpose, design plan, and others of that family. How do you know when someone is sick unless you know what it means for them to be well? But what is it that makes a function proper? Now with artifacts, the answer to that question is pretty easy. It's whatever the intelligent designer intended for it to be. But what about with organisms? Now if theism is true, in other words if God exists, then there's no problem here. Because like artifacts, organisms also have an intelligent designer, God. So proper function means the exact same thing for organisms that it does for artifacts. It's whatever the intelligent designer intended for it to be. But what about on atheism? If there is no God, then what determines that the proper function of a heart is to pump blood and not to make that thumpa thumpa sound? It seems that when atheists use the concept of proper function, they're borrowing something from theism that their own worldview can't justify. This can be summarized in a syllogism like this. Premise 1. If organisms have a proper function, they must have been designed by a rational being. Premise 2. Organisms have a proper function. Conclusion. Therefore, organisms must have been designed by a rational being. That's Plantinga's argument from proper function. Now, next week, we're going to take a look at how some naturalists have tried to ground the concept of proper function in something other than the intentions of an intelligent mind. See you then. God bless.